Welcome, Chiefs Kingdom, to this week's edition of the Out of Structure podcast. Matt Stagner here with Ryan Kopp Jr. As always, celebrating a Chiefs victory, which seems like for the first time in months, 25-17 over the Cincinnati Bengals, clinching the AFC West, clinching the number 3 seed in the AFC playoffs. Pretty good outcome overall, Ron. How you feeling about it?
You know, I did see this coming, kind of an inspired effort, right? You know, I do think it was kind of nice to have the Bengals maybe juice this game up a little bit after the Chiefs, that Christmas Day disaster. They needed some reason to maybe get a little extra juice, obviously, and Jamar Chase's comments before the game, I think, did that, Stags. Don't you think? Don't you think there was a little more juice from both sides of the ball? It
was chippy. I mean, they definitely were
that was fun.
Not a lot of love lost, as they would say, right? And a lot of comments. I mean, there was a lot of scruffs during the game, but also some comments after the game. I mean, this was on their minds.
Yeah, no, and Chris Jones I wrote it up for the site, but he said, we don't comment, we just play. Which, hey, it's like, we've said stuff in the media, Chiefs, but I'll let you say it, Chris. But he kind of did mention that they do this every year. He said that exact set. He said they do this every year in the playoffs and the regular season. That's what they do. And Jamar Chase even is kind of open about being an instigator. He kind of likes it, but no, it was kind of nice. I think they needed that something a little to get a little pep in their step or get a little a little more juice flying to the ball on defense. It was kind of one of those games where we needed to see it secure the win. And now they got week 18 where we've yet to kind of hear from the team how they want to handle it, Stags, but there's no reason for them to be playing. Like you mentioned, they're clinching to the 3 seed, so they're kind of set where they're set.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they handle that, because obviously they didn't get the number 1 seed. They didn't get the bye week. There's only one of those nowadays. So it's a situation where you're either fighting for your playoff live or you're in a situation where the Chiefs are, and then they're locked into their 3 seed. So they won't be playing for anything team-wise in Week 18 against the Chargers. They are locked into the 3 seed. We know that they'll have one home game at Arrowhead, and then it's all bets off after that, depending on how the rest of the playoff group falls. So they don't have anything to play for as a team, but – So let's talk about philosophically. Let's take the individual stuff out of it. Let's say as a team, would you rather see your team, the way this season has gone, continue to get tuned up for the playoffs, continue to find that rhythm, or would you rather them get rest, try to get their heads right, treat it like a bye week?
Oh, I'm 100% on the bye week. I think this is a blessing, for the Chiefs that they – get to kind of be locked into a seed and get the bye week that I think this team kind of needs. They kind of got, they didn't get the latest bye week this year. And I mean, since their actual bye week, it's been disastrous. I mean, that's really when it kind of turned for the worse for the Chiefs. So, maybe that's not a good a good point for my argument, but I think this team could use a rest. And, I think a few players may not want to hear that. Maybe we want to get out there, but I think the team as a whole could really use the complete week off and get ready for the wild card.
Yeah, in general, I would agree with that. I think, obviously you don't want anything to happen to Mahomes. You'd like to see him get in a good headspace. You'd like to see, the offensive line get a little healthier again. They've been banged up here and there. So I think there's an argument to be made for a lot of rest on this team. But yeah, there's some individual things to play for, and a little hat tip to Let's Chat Chiefs on Twitter. There's 3 guys out there trying to get to 1,000 yards on the season, and at least 2 of the 3 would be very historic for this team. Do the Chiefs give some of these guys a chance to hit those personal milestones? Number 1, and the biggest one of all of them, is Travis Kelce. He's 16 yards short of his 8th straight 1,000-yard season as a tight end. And no other tight end has more than 2 in their career, if I remember
correctly.
Greg
Olsen got 3.
3, okay. So
he's the only other he's the only other one, so yeah.
So yeah, he's That's a Hall of Fame number. And to be 16 yards away, that's one play. Can you put
that's one
Kelce
over
in
route.
the first drive?
Right.
Try to hit him on something designed, get him to 1,000, and then get him on the bench. What do you think about Kelce?
No, honestly, yeah. I think really what they could do is just and they've done this in like preseason games when they only have one drive. I've seen them do it. This one, it's one of Kelce's favorite plays, but they don't run it a ton because it can't be run a ton. Fakes the over, pivots back across the grain of the defense. Mahomes is rolling one way, and only so many quarterbacks can even throw that pass, right? Because it's kind of like across the body, all the way across the field. I think you see something like that just to get him to 16 yards because it really is just a chunk play, and there's a few different ways to get Kelce into space. They just got to scheme it up, and I could see them doing it like right off the bat.
Well, if it happens exactly like that, I'll buy you a beer, Ron.
That'd be sick.
For the prediction there. That would be incredible. Rashee Rice, really one of the stories of the season at this point is obviously everybody's talking about how bad the wide receivers have been. Now all of a sudden you've got one guy that's emerged from that room, and it's a rookie. Rookies never emerged from the wide receiver room under Andy Reid. He's already the most successful rookie wide receiver in the history of Andy Reid's head coaching experience. But he's 62 yards away from a 1,000-yard season. He's also not that far away from passing up Travis Kelce and leading this entire team in receiving,
right.
which was unthinkable prior to the season. So he's what, 60 yards behind Kelce. So in theory, if they sit Kelce the whole game, if you get Rashee Rice to 1,000, he probably leads this team in receiving and hits the 1,000-yard mark as a rookie. He should be right up there with the Rookie of the Year conversations on the offensive side.
It's tough. I mean, obviously we have Texans quarterback CJ Stroud. I mean, he's been good this year, but he got hurt. He did get hurt. And there's some others off the top of my head that I should know and I'm not thinking of, but he's up there. He's definitely up there. He's definitely one of the best rookie receivers. And what I would say is he has a good chance to get this, Stags, because for him specifically, I think he's someone that you may want to keep in a rhythm, even if it's without Mahomes. Just keep him playing, get him his usual snap count. He's a rookie. It's not like he's, there is a rookie wall that we all like to maybe consider, but it's not like he's been playing full time like he is now throughout the season. Yeah. He's getting into a rhythm now. So he's maybe someone that I would be fine with letting him play even with the subs and maybe getting to that 1,000 yards. That would be a cool mark for him.
Yeah, of the three that we're going to talk about, he's probably the most likely and the most logical to play a significant amount of this Week 18 game. The one that maybe is least likely is the one that's the most banged up is Isaiah Pacheco. Had in-season shoulder surgery to clean himself up. Plays like just an absolute maniac. Was just a stud this last week. Big runs, angry runs, 7 catches, 130 yards rushing. It was really a big game for Isaiah Pacheco this week. Put it all on the line to help the Chiefs clinch the AFC West. He's 65 yards away from 1,000 yards rushing. The Chiefs haven't had a lot of 1,000-yard rushers over the last couple of years. This would be another nice mark to see them hit. But do you risk Pacheco's health at this point with, maybe not the most depth behind him anymore?
Yeah, this is the one that I think Pacheco could definitely use just another little bye week. I know he actually missed, obviously, a recent game or recent games anyway. So it's not like he's been playing, so many games. But, I think he's someone, like you mentioned, with all the in-season stuff. Just let him sit the bench. He has 1,000 total yards, and 65 isn't a guarantee no matter how much you play. So I would just chill out, Pacheco. We'll get you your playoff runs because we're about to get into it, but I think he's going to be plenty featured and get plenty of yards in the playoffs when it matters more.
He absolutely should be. He's really a centerpiece of this offense at this point. I think he might even sit Clyde in this Week 18 game as well, and really focus on getting some of that further down the line depth available in practice. You got Ingram, you got P. Ryan, you got Prince. There's a handful of potential options there that have not seen the field much. So why not block up some stuff for those guys in week 18 and see what they can do? running back is a tough position to play all 17 games. It's one of those that rarely happens. So I wouldn't be sad to see a little Keontae Ingram and others in week 18.
Yeah, I know. I thought we were maybe going to get a little bit of that this week, but Pacheco ended up playing. Clyde did not. But yeah, I think I'm with you. It'd be nice to just let them only have the guys that really haven't played yet get some snaps. And again, McKinnon is on IR, but he can come back for the divisional round potentially if they make it that far. That's the first time he can come back. So,
in case you didn't hear it, I'm over here knocking on wood that there is a divisional round game for him to play in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's a big if, but hey, he's been a valuable postseason player in the past, so that wouldn't hurt either. So I had to do the winners and losers this week as usual. Was a little bit more fun than previous weeks.
Yeah.
Because there were some really good individual performances across the board. We mentioned Rashee Rice already. That 67-yard catch and run, really showed some nuance in his ability to understand what the defense is giving him and taking that and getting upfield. Shows that he can be a deep pass guy as well. He's not just a run after catch player and somebody that they can feature all over the field. That's the kind of thing he needs to show to be considered a number one type receiver. And I think he's on that track right now. Obviously, would you love to have a superstar with him as your number two? Sure. But if Rashee Rice is your number one and he's doing stuff like that, then, you've got a room, you've got a shot.
Yeah. The thing I liked about his 67-yard reception was it showed him and Mahomes being on the same page chemistry-wise, because if you actually watch it a little closely, the reason why he kind of blows wide open and there's really no one near him once he gets past the corner is it looks like the Bengals corners were playing cover 2, which kind of means you want to sink underneath and kind of play underneath a vertical route like that. But then you usually have a safety over the top of that deep half kind of helping you. And if you watch, that safety bailed the opposite direction, definitely a miscommunication in the Bengals secondary. But what Rice talked about after the game, what Mahomes talked about after the game is, they had to kind of communicate on the fly, kind of, not obviously verbally communicate, but just kind of had to, work, change his route on the fly to make that work. And, it was a nice catch and run. He didn't really have to break stride to catch it. It was over his shoulder. Mahomes put it, that's kind of good to see Mahomes put, a confident throw to him, Rice catch it confidently. Those are the kind of throws, when teams do make mistakes like that, they need to be able to take advantage. And I feel like receivers on this team have not done that this year. Rice did that game.
Yeah, they made it look easy, and that was nice for a change. It's been such a struggle in the passing game, and that was a play that was like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. That was nice to see. Isaiah Pacheco again, 130 yards is a career high for him. Also had a career high with 7 targets and 7 catches. There's pros and cons to that. The fact that he got 7 targets, but I loved the touchdown reception of his. That was a really well-designed play, very well executed. And again, nice to see him getting involved in the passing game as well.
Yeah, I want to break down the red zone or the opening drive touchdown a little later, but I will say on his rushing yards and just his 2 35-yard runs, he had the 9-yard run to start the game too. The Chiefs offensive line definitely came out and played with more aggression, but also the tight ends I want to shout out. Kelsey had a few really significant blocks to pop a few of those. Noah Gray had a good block down the field on the first 35-yard run. It was definitely some strong blocking efforts up front, but you see how having Pacheco really just gives this run offense another level of kind of just pop, right? In terms of Clyde or maybe even one of the other running backs, maybe those turn into 18-yard runs, 20-yard runs. And it's like, okay, that's exciting. But 35 is that's 3 first downs, you just made, right? And Pacheco really does have that speed to kind of make the most of those. So that's why Pacheco is so important in the run game, being able to make those into 35-yard runs, not just 15, 20 yards.
Absolutely. And it is so energizing to see him run and the way that he gets fired up and the way he, pounds the turf, running like he's mad at the grass. That is he
gets his head down and
that. Yeah. Some people were saying it was cartoon-like the way he was running on that long play. But I loved every second of it. I also had to give a hat tip to the defensive pass rush, really closing out the game. This is more of a second half effort, more so than the first half. But Charles Omenihu has been huge over the last few games and is really coming up big. He's got a sack in 5 straight games, credited with half a sack this week, also knocked down a pass. He's been a big part of what they're doing up front, along with George Karlaftis, who now not only leads the team in sacks, is now in double digits for the first time in his career, his second season. I wasn't sure he'd ever be a double-digit sack guy, so having him sit at 10.5 already, beating Orlando Brown Jr., old friend, on one of those plays. He had a big game. It is really, looking like the best version of himself as well.
Yeah, no, it was a nice pass rush game down the stretch, like you mentioned, in terms of at first it was kind of like, all right, Browning's kind of being able to get out of the pocket, kind of get throws off or scramble. They weren't getting home necessarily. But yeah, as the game wore on, you saw that last drive. It was 4 sacks in a row, like pretty much. Justin Reed had 2, which your next winners do the defensive backs, a bunch of them. I think all the defensive backs had a great game, obviously, teaming up to shut down Jamar Chase. But no, the pass rush, I think, really just wore down that Bengals offensive line. And I knew I should have put some money on it or something. I knew Karlaftis was going to get around Orlando at one point just because he's been working that speed rush this year. He has that dip. And that's what we've always seen Orlando struggle with. It's what Trey Hendrickson, which unfortunately, one of your, we'll talk about him on the other side. He can do. He's done against Brown in the past. Karlaftis gets it done against him. It was kind of cool to see Karlaftis kind of know what to do and use the right move to get a sack when it mattered most.
Yeah, he winded up super wide, right, and he came flying around.
Oh yeah,
I think that's
speed rush. Oh yeah,
yeah, that was cool to see. Defensive backs, as you mentioned, just played really, really physical ball. Really impressive work out of L'Jarius Sneed again, shutting down or really limiting a team's number 1 receiver who has absolutely destroyed the Chiefs in previous years. To see him all but shut down Chase, going face to face, head to head, blow for blow with him as Chase was trying to start fights the whole game. Sneed's probably not innocent there either, but those guys got after it, and it wasn't just him. Really, I thought there were some good plays by Joshua Williams against Higgins and others. This defensive back room, has got a lot of dogs in it, a lot of good players, and they're playing a really physical brand of football that gives you some hope with the pass rush and the defensive backs playing the way they are.
Yeah, no, I mean Sneed. I wrote about it last week, but because Trent McDuffie actually said it's like Darrelle Revis, and that's kind of like the ultimate compliment for like a shutdown cornerback. And there's this famous graphic of how many receivers Revis shut down 35 yards or less in that historic 2009 season. And like Sneed definitely does not have the same resume. But I mean, you do look at his receiving resume this year of guys he's held to the same mark, and it's like, oh dang, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs. Jamar Chase did get over that 35-yard mark, but just barely. He had 41 yards. Mm-hmm. And so it is just, I think it's easy for, I think you saw some Bengals fans just say, well, he gets doubled. He gets the safety help every time. So, it's obviously, it's easier. I think in past situations, like on third down and like the crucial moments, yes, obviously he gets that safety over the top and a number 1 receiver. It's kind of part of the, it's just the scheme. He's done it all year, right? Like, hey, we're not going to let you get to your number 1 target. We're going to trust McDuffie to man up the number 2 guy without the safety help. But I think a lot of times in early down and neutral situations, I mean, it's just Sneed beating Chase up and just not letting him get into his route. You saw the one pass breakup where he kind of, just patient, let him get into his route and just boom. It was that was a great play.
Oh, that was awesome. That was
where he just kind of reached and just kind of plucked it out. Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah. I mean, talk about an opportunity to make a play on the ball and avoid getting a penalty, which has not always been the case. That was
right. It was clean. Yeah, no, exactly.
And then finally, the other winner I had was Harrison Butker. They relied on him way too much this week, but he delivered, and it turned out to be the difference in the game, scoring the last 18 points of this contest while the defense clamped down on the Bengals. We'll take it. On the loser side, I feel like we're beating a dead horse talking about Marquez Valdez-Scantling once again struggling, had 1 catch for 3 yards. On 3 targets, had two drops. I mean, one of them was a clear drop. The other one, the ball went through his hand on a deep pass. Either way, you got to make at least one of those plays. That's what you're paid to do. It's been just a miserable season for MVS, really with about half of the production that you'd expect or hope from him based on his career averages.
Yeah, especially because on that deep pass, like at first you're like, okay, it just was kind of outstretched, like a little, but like the cameras don't lie to me. I mean, it looked like it went right through his hands, and it almost too like he was kind of pulling up and almost like kind of going to the sideline, like trying to like he could have ran through that a little more. And so that's where it is just like he's just not seeing the ball right. He's just not, those deep passes right now are just like a nightmare for him, which is supposed to be what he's best at. And then obviously that crossing route, man, that was bad. I know it was behind him a little bit, but you're an NFL receiver, man. Catch the dang ball.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah. Travis Kelce, I don't know how critical I want to be of Kelce, but certainly the production hasn't been there the last couple of weeks now. 3 catches for 16 yards total. They tried to get him involved, and it just wasn't there this week. Now, the production came from others, so it wasn't a problem, but you hope that he's got something in the tank for the playoffs. I just start to worry a little bit that it's not the same Kelce we're used to.
Yeah, no, the Bengals definitely, and like they've done in a lot of games, if you look at Kelce's stat line against the Bengals, it's never great. They do take him away. Lou Anarumo does a great job of kind of, de facto double teaming him by just having the safety play over the top. And a lot of times that's why you saw the Chiefs get looks that were one high, able to see MVS down the sideline, able to get Justin Watson on that 141-yard bomb. It's because that other safety is really paying attention to Kelce. And so, yeah, I think, maybe this game specifically, it was more so them taking him away, but it is, we got to see more than that. He's got to make a big play or two if this Chiefs offense, wants to be as good as it can be.
Yeah, because eventually defenses are going to see that Rashee Rice is the one threat, and they're going to really try to take him away. Kelce's got to capitalize if they try to do that. So, and he's been your clutch guy in the playoffs. So the postseason's coming up. Hopefully he gets right and puts it all out there for one big run here at the end. Another guy that maybe there's some concern about, maybe not. I'm curious to get your take. Wanya Morris, the new left tackle, due to injury of Donovan Smith. The rookie allowed some more pressure this week. Not as many as previous weeks. The sack he gave up was a strip sack by Trey Hendrickson, which isn't great. Are you worried about his pass protection ability long term, or has he had just a couple of welcome to the NFL games here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more so just that he's had some welcome to the NFL moments. I think it's a good way to put it, honestly. Like, I don't think anyone expected him or wanted him to be starting at this point in the season. I think ideally Donovan Smith was this left tackle the entire season. You let Wanya develop, maybe play when you thought maybe we could be blowing teams out. That hasn't been happening this year. And this week 18 game, though, I do think it'd be good for him to get the whole game, not get any like rest or anything. They wouldn't do that, obviously. With a rookie offensive line, they'll probably play the whole offensive line. But no, in this game specifically, the first sack, I mean, the strip sack by Trey Hendrickson, it's just the Chiefs just being dumb. Like, give him the protection. It was they gave Jawan Taylor the running back chip to the right, and it's like Jawan Taylor's going against Sam Hubbard. Like, if Jawan Taylor can't lock him up, then we're screwed. Hey,
No, what do you think? I did see a comment. Was it Mitchell Schwartz or somebody else was talking about how they give the extra help based on what the defense does there. So it wasn't like they specifically designed the play to not give help to Wanya, but it was more of a response to the defensive alignment that they ended up in that position.
And that's where you can give credit to the Bengals, because they probably do, after playing so many times, there's probably things they kind of know and maybe, they set that up where they're like, all right, we're going to do this. So Hendrickson gets the one-on-one with a rookie left tackle because, that's the thing. It only happened that one time, that he just came around the corner. A lot of the other times, there was a plan, a better plan. And, a lot of times the Chiefs were just running the ball well, getting the ball out quick. So it was just, that play was just an example of, he's going to maybe have those moments as a rookie, like in the playoffs. You can't just leave him isolated. You got to have plans, especially against the Ravens, especially against, teams like the Bills, the Browns, if they run into those kind of teams, the Steelers. Like they're going to have guys that can get around Wanya if you just leave him isolated. So it's just got to be a more concerted effort to make sure he's not left on an island in an important moment, because that was third down. Like, yeah, there's going to be times maybe on first down, second down but if it's an obvious pass down, you can't just leave him on an island against a good pass rusher like that. Against a great pass rusher, I'd say Hendrickson is 17 sacks. I mean, he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. Well,
I didn't realize he had that many. He's definitely a threat and somebody who's making a name for himself, and so you got to pay attention to him. You had the Insta breakdown this week as usual. You talked about the opening drive and how they had some rare success there. Yes. What do you got for us from the Insta breakdown perspective?
Yeah, I mean, week 17 was this Chiefs-Bengals game. The last time they had an opening drive touchdown was week 9. So it's been 8 games. That Germany game against the Dolphins, they had an opening drive touchdown, which was nice. They just kind of marched down the field in a kind of similar way, right? Because the thing I liked about this drive was the concerted effort in the run game right off the bat. Because if you look at the first play of the opening drive, it was a power play, which means the linemen are down blocking. Joe Thuney's pulling into space. You have Travis Kelce seal the defensive end very well, and Thuney seals the linebacker very well. Boom, you got 9 yards right off the bat. Like, that is a tone setter. 9 yards on first down is important, and that was the theme throughout this game. Instead of the previous game, like the Raiders game, you had a lot of bad plays on first down, setting up for third and longs that they could not convert. In this game, you had a lot of explosive plays or just good plays on first down, whether it was moving the chains or setting up for third and shorts. But in this opening drive, that was one thing, and then you saw the 35-yard run by Pacheco later, which was just great blocking. I already kind of mentioned that earlier. But one play with Rashee Rice that I really like to see, and this is where on opening drives, sometimes you hear people say, hey, the team is trying to set up for the rest of the game. They're showing certain looks to see how the defense reacts. I think there are two versions of opening drives. I think there's ones that are strictly for that and ones that are trying to score. And I think you could tell when the Chiefs are kind of do one or the other. And it felt like this one was let's go down and score because of that first play I mentioned, but also because you see this one play where Rice is kind of lined up in the backfield as kind of that H-back, and then he runs from a play action bootleg. He runs that kind of slide route out of the backfield. You see a lot of, like running backs or a tight end do. They have Rice in that position because they need an explosive play. They want an explosive play, and that's what Rice can do. That's what they need to do more of, is make him a versatile player where he's running more of the routes that maybe other receivers do, like a tight end. That got 18 yards. And then here's another thing that I noticed on the opening drive, which I thought was cool, even though it didn't result in anything. You saw Justin Ross immediately come in for MVS once they got into the red zone. And you saw that throughout the game, too, that once the Chiefs entered the red zone, Justin Ross came in the game for one of the 3 receivers in that 11 personnel set. So I think they are trying to make a concerted effort there. But that was the opening drive, right? So and the final one, which is the play we all like, the touchdown play. They just overload the Bengals to one side, get 4 receivers out into a route, and actually 2 Bengals players go with Rashee Rice on the crosser, so the middle of the field just becomes wide open. Pacheco does a great job selling like he's going to the flat. It makes a linebacker commit to the flat. Boom, he's angling Texas route into the middle of the field. Touchdown, great play design, great drive, and that's what they need to do in the playoffs, is just manufacture opening drives on how the defense plays, right? I think they know how this Bengals defense plays, and I think you saw they attacked it in certain ways to get that touchdown right away. And then they played into more conservative mode as the game went on. But I don't know. How'd you like that opening drive touchdown? It was kind of refreshing to see right out the bat.
It was. And so what I'm hearing you say is the Chiefs should try to score touchdowns when they're on offense.
Yeah, right? Isn't it a crazy concept?
That's a bold strategy there. Let's see how it plays out as they come down the stretch here.
And what I will say is maybe, in the regular season, right, like there's not as much of a reason for the Chiefs to feel like they need to have that opening drive, touchdown score instead of a, like I said, like you can kind of see how the defense is playing you. If you score a touchdown, hey, that's great. But I think sometimes Andy plays like that. In the playoffs, though, I think maybe he does turn it on into touchdown mode, and that's what they need to do. And this was a touchdown or a playoff game, and I think that's maybe why you saw that. They needed to win this game to have it all locked up.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you a little bit of hope that when Andy Reid and company are convinced that they need a win, that they can go out and put something together and make it happen. Obviously, from here forward, they need a lot of wins. They need 4 or 5 more wins to get to the ultimate goal.
Well, I want to do party pooper now too before we get to break because it is pretty quick because the red zone offense, right, was pretty easily the kind of the party pooper thing about this game. Imagine if they finish some of these drives. I mean, we're talking about a 40-17 game, something like that, where we're really thinking, oh wow, Chiefs offense figured it out. They're good. But the weird thing about the red zone offense was just kind of it's not, I almost found the positive in it, or not a positive, but just almost like a formula maybe for the Chiefs in the postseason, which we all might just have to get used to, is that Mahomes is going to play pretty conservatively, knowing how this team is constructed right now, and knowing how maybe their best way to win a Super Bowl right now is to not force not force plays, to not have turnovers, I should say, and maybe just to play more time of possession, run the ball well, right, and trust this defense to hold teams under 20 to 17 points. And so that's what you saw in these red zone offensive drives is Mahomes rarely, and actually I'm looking through my notes, I don't think he actually attempted a throw into the end zone in these last 4 field goal drives. They all ended inside the red zone, but they were either running it or he was dropping back, didn't like what he saw, and they might have been ugly checkdowns sometimes. Some of the checkdowns were like, oh man, you don't like, it was kind of out of rhythm, but he was checking it down. He was settling for kind of a field goal. He wasn't forcing stuff. And that's kind of how this offense might have to play. And it might be frustrating at times. You need to finish some of those drives, but at the same time, it's not always going to be there. And with this defense right now, maybe you can trust multiple field goal drives, knowing that, your offense between the 20s might be getting a little more space. Mahomes might be feeling a little better between the 20s. When it gets condensed, though, that's when the receivers route running and trust really does get important, right? When the space is condensed, and maybe that's why you're seeing them struggle to finish drives.
Yeah, we definitely seen too many turnovers in the red zone this year. So if they can avoid that situation, even if it ends in a field goal, then yeah, good things are going to happen when your defense plays well. I did notice that there was that 5 of the 6 field goals that it was a check down to Pacheco that was short of the first down. I mean, it was really notable, and that's obviously why Pacheco had so many targets this game, because it was check down city, and he was a recipient of those. You take those away, and he's got a typical 2 or 3 catch game. So yeah, that's an interesting pattern. We'll get to some questions after the break. We've got some good ones this week. We'll talk a little bit about what that winning formula is going forward, and I think you may be onto something there. But let's get to everybody's favorite game. What NFL player am I? Ron's going to attempt to stump me for the second time ever this week with somebody who played for both the Chiefs and the Chargers.
Yes, I will do so. Let's do it. Chiefs, Chargers. I am a player that started my career with the Chiefs in the 90s. Had my little run with the 90s Chiefs. But then I went to San Diego and made a name for myself a little more across the NFL. Made my only Pro Bowl there. But I actually did finish my career up in Kansas City down the stretch. And those are the only 2 teams I played for. That's all I got for you, Stags.
All right, we'll get to that, plus more of your questions after the break. Stick with us on the Out of Structure Podcast. And we're back on the Out of Structure Podcast, Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Make sure you like, rate, review, follow all of the great content that you'll see from our contributors on the site and on the podcast network. Ron Kopp Jr., Matt Stagner, trying to figure out Ron's question this week. Somebody who played for both the Chiefs and the Chargers, he mentioned that he started with the Chiefs, went to the Chargers, came back to the Chiefs. That's where he lost me. I was going to go with Brandon Flowers, so I'm just going to stick with that guess because I can't think of anybody else. But I don't think he came back to the Chiefs after being a Charger.
No, and I did mention the 90s was when he started with the Chiefs. So it is kind of an older player, older school player. But he did play linebacker. Does that help at all? Linebacker for the Chiefs in the 90s, went over to the Chargers, made a little bit more of a name for himself.
Wait.
Came back.
You talking about Donnie Edwards?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe I forgot about him. All right.
One-time Pro Bowler with the Chargers.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. Because it is funny. Growing up, the era I did, I remember Donnie Edwards, but I had no idea he was a Chief until a little later into my fandom. I just remembered him as the Chargers linebacker.
One of those guys that most Chiefs fans that are my age are still mad that they let him leave the Chiefs.
Right. He was 5th in Player of the Year voting in 2004. I mean, my God.
He brought that element that just was missing, and he was that modern day linebacker that can play in space, can play against the pass, and
nice.
The Chiefs went probably 15 years without having anybody else like him other than Derek Johnson.
Well, hey, there you go. I mean, there's Donnie Edwards.
All right, let's get to some mailbag questions. We had plenty on Twitter. Make sure you remember to submit those either on Twitter or through the Gmail account. We love your questions just because it makes it easier to have something to talk about. But also, there's so many good, insightful ones this week. Ed Holinsky, clearly a reader of arrowheadpride.com, asked, at this point in the season, who's trending up and who's trending down? I joke a little bit there because I do write a weekly piece called Market Movers, where we talk about which Chiefs are trending in which direction. Some that we're bullish on that are trending up, and some that we're bearish on that are trending down. And usually a sleeper or two, somebody that we or the rest of the league are sleeping on, who may be an impact player. So I'm going to let Ron go first on answering this question, because obviously I've got my opinions out there. But go ahead. You have maybe give us one that's trending in each direction.
I'll go trending up, and it's one that I think it makes sense why. I think I'm going to say Chris Jones, because I think he hasn't been maybe as high in the market maybe as he could be with how he's been playing down the stretch. Hasn't had the production necessarily, but you see him getting through. When I was at the Raiders game, he was popping off at the beginning of the game when they weren't helping the guard as much. This game, he was getting through. He had the sack at the end of the game finally. I think you're going to see him, really be a dominant player in the postseason, be a reason why, the defense, kind of tries to carry this team, to the finish line, right? And so I'd say Chris Jones is trending up into, where he might be that we kind of saw him as that legendary elite player in the AFC Championship last year after that performance. I think we're going to maybe see closer to that once we get into the postseason.
He definitely has the clutch gene, and he seems to be ready to step up and close games out. I saw that he put out another plea on Twitter to get Frank Clark back. But
yeah, he did. I saw that. Yeah,
those were your closers, in past playoff runs. Those are the guys who, when you absolutely needed to play, in general, those are the ones that are stepping up. For me, it's hard to have Chris Jones on a stock up, because the way I rank players, I've got him kind of 1 through 53 on the roster, and he's already, top 3, no matter how you slice it. So definitely think that he's got a chance to make an impact, but maybe not somebody I'd slotted as a stock up, because the stock's already high. I thought you were going to go with, as you talked about, a defender who might be an impact player who broke loose with a sack later in the game. I thought we were talking about a safety here, and somebody who is kind of your defensive leader in a lot of ways. Justin Reed, I think, may be an ascending player at this point. He's a big hitter. He has the ability to be a ball hawk. But, man, he's been fun to watch as a pass rusher in recent weeks, and maybe somebody that they can mix things up a little bit more coming down the stretch.
Yeah, no, Justin Reed is a good one, because they're going to need him to be a playmaker at the safety position. With B. Cook, I think, still injured. We don't really know his status. Hopefully coming back, but that safety position is definitely, not as versatile. It's kind of more straight up, where Reed's got to have to be in the box, making plays on tight ends. Like, there's no like, kind of disguising it. So he's just going to have to be a really good player, and he has been. So I like that one. I should have gave Charles Omenihu a shout out with the trending up, because that's kind of someone we've been highlighting on the site recently. And man, he has been on a tear recently. He's been in on a sack in at least 5 straight games. He's batting down passes. He's getting pressure from the edge too. I know I've talked about that on the pod, but it's not just the inside stuff that we all kind of saw coming into the season. So I should shout out him too. I should have made him the trending up, but trending down, I mean, I don't know who else to put besides Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Like he needs to be trending down and out of the lineup. Like he needs to be, because this is someone that's supposed to be, a staple in the receiving rotation. He's supposed to be a starter. He's been a starter both years here in terms of the 11 personnel. He is one of those 3 receivers out there when they have everybody healthy, but he should not be one of those players. He should be a rotation player that plays as much as a Richie James or last year Justin Watson. This year Justin Watson's a starter, so he's so all that to say is it's obviously MVS. I don't know who else I'd really want to put trending down at this point.
Yeah, he's unfortunately on my list almost every week, trending down. It's getting to the point where he's his stock is cheap, right? Like in theory, you could buy low on MVS at this point, but I just don't see it coming up. And I do, since you got two bullish or two guys you were high on that are trending up, where I'm going to take a second and go with Willie Gay Jr., who is somewhat of an under the radar player this season. We talked about, is he going to see a lot of snaps with Drew Tranquill being on the field? It seemed like they figured out a formula that still keeps Willie Gay on the field, and he makes some impact plays. He had some monster plays this week, including that fourth down stop where he just blew through the line of scrimmage and they had no chance of converting, really causing a turnover on downs in the red zone. That was one of the things that turned the tide on this game. I think they, if I remember correctly, the Bengals only crossed over midfield once the rest of the game after that one play. That was a big stop and something that you don't always see from this defense. Willie Gay has been a big play guy off and on throughout his NFL career, but it feels like he's found a role and found a spot where he can make an impact.
Well, and the cool thing about that play was that, watching the game, you saw the frustration the CBS cameras caught, Willie Gay getting frustrated on the sideline, needing to be calmed down by Chris Jones. That was before that play. What happened was on the touchdown they allowed, it was, I think, 3rd and goal. It was 3rd and goal. Browning rolls out. Willie Gay has a shot to stop him short of the goal line, kind of just flies in too fast, kind of flies by him. Browning is able to squeeze by, score a touchdown. And apparently Omenahue kind of was getting on him, probably about that. I'm assuming that part of it. But it was after that play, because when you came back from break, that's when they showed Willie Gay getting frustrated. And so for him to respond in a positive way, right, and make a play later in the game with that energy rather than, get, too, caught up in it, and Chris showing that leadership, right? I think that was a cool moment. I've been someone to say that Chris is more just an emotional leader in terms of kind of getting people hype. He's not maybe a true, veteran player leader, but that was a moment where he was. And so I want to shout out Chris Jones for showing that leadership. And it might have been the reason why Gay was locked in and able to make that play later in the game.
That's a great catch. That's a great point. I think there's a lot to be said for that mental fortitude. It's what makes champions, right? Is they don't melt down, or if they have a brief meltdown, they forget it quick and get back in and have a positive result afterwards. I think that's a positive thing. There's been a lot of turmoil on the sidelines this year, a lot of frustrated players for obvious reasons. You like to see them making something positive out of that. So I think that's great. I guess for trending down, I'll stick with the wide receiver room and go with the other guy that should be making plays for this team that has not. Kadarius Toney is somebody who, again, was supposed to be the number one wide receiver, supposed to be a big playmaker, supposed to be versatile, supposed to be somebody they were saving for the stretch run, somebody that's going to come in and help them win games in the playoffs. Did a little bit last year, certainly made an impact at least on punt returns. Missed the last couple of weeks with a hip injury. A lot of people have kind of raised an eyebrow at that and said, hey, is this a shadow benching? Is this a way to say, hey, yes, you've got an injury, take a seat whether you think you're injured or not? I'm not sure, but I'm starting to have less and less faith that he's going to be this late season weapon that they've been keeping under wraps for the rest of the league.
Yeah, I agree with you. And honestly, I think no one should expect that. And let's just use Richie James in that role and just see how it goes. I just really feel like Richie James can do 80%, 85% of what Toney can do as an athlete after the catch. And you saw him do the punt return. He had the one funky one, but he did have the big one this game, right? It was like 27 yards. It looked like he was breaking it. Mm-hmm. They haven't really used him on offense as much as like a Toney, but if you want to use that kind of player, I say use him. I just feel like it. Let's just see how he does and stop trying to rely on Toney. So I'm with you.
A question from El Chief Honcho. He was at the game yesterday and said McCole Hardman was activated. Why wasn't he used? He knows the playbook. He should have Mahomes' trust. He wants to see James and Hardman with Rice and Ross instead of MVS. Thanks, guys. Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs indeed. I don't mind this idea. I had McCole Hardman as a sleeper for this week, thinking that he was somebody that could make a big play or two here and there. Doesn't need to be a high volume guy, but if you get him, sneak him open deep, or throw a jet sweep or something his way, wide receiver screen, something that could be productive, he could be that missing speed element, that big play receiver that they don't have right now. And yes, we're all in agreement that MVS should. I mean, I would almost go so far as to make him inactive in the playoffs, but you probably just need him on the bench just in case somebody gets hurt.
Well, this guy knows what he's talking about, because I think they did do Ross in the red zone instead of MVS. I noticed that in the first drive, like I mentioned earlier. So shout out you for that observation. I think it's something that they are going to continue to do because they need someone in the red zone that can catch a tight window throw, a contested catch, and MVS is not that guy, and neither is Justin Watson to an extent, although he's had better fortune with that. But yeah, I think the McCole thing is just, he's going to be used on those jet sweeps and stuff, but I think they really didn't use, the offense was really basic this last game. And I think you saw that they didn't have as much pre-snap motion, as much kind of jet sweep stuff. And maybe that's kind of why, or kind of how I should say, is that's how they simplified it.
Yeah. And maybe he's going to be the secret weapon all along that comes and makes an impact. I mean, they thought enough of him to trade assets to get him back after missing him, for part of the season. So maybe there's something up their sleeves that we don't know about. I want to jump to add Jake for now. Jake Wilson, our guy. Who's going to finish the regular season with better combined stats? A, Rashee Rice plus Noah Gray, or B, Travis Kelce plus MVS. If you didn't look at the numbers, I know you've done the research here, but without looking at the numbers, what would your gut have said?
Oh, I would have told you probably Rashee Rice and Noah Gray, because Noah Gray actually catches some passes and gets volume rather than MVS. But yeah, no, I didn't realize he was trying to make it like a guessing game thing. I thought he just wanted to see who was gonna have more down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, without looking up the numbers, historically, obviously, it's Kelce and MVS over the last few games. I would think that Rice's production ticking out the way it has would have that duo overcome the others. But he kind of is a good thing to point out here. I'll let you cover the stats, but it's kind of an interesting. Is this a handoff of the to the younger players a little bit, a transition of sorts to say, hey, you're not necessarily going to be relying on the Travis Kelce's and MVS's of the world going forward. Maybe it is Rashee Rice and Noah Gray and obviously Pacheco and others that you're going to build this offense around.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I just think Gray, he's just a more volume player than MVS. So I think it's a little bit of, the yardage, I mean, Kelce and MVS do have more yardage this year. So I mean, I can tell you that they have just a few more yards, just like 60 more yards. But they have less touchdowns, which is kind of funny. Rice and Gray combined for 9 touchdowns this year. Kelce and MVS only have 6. So yeah, no, you're right. I mean, Kelce and MVS should be the top 2 receivers on the team. If you go by kind of how, the stats or the contracts works out and stuff. But I think Rice is just, I mean, he could, like we talked about earlier, he could surpass Kelce receiving wise, and Gray's just kind of been the guy, check down guy, or just kind of, 2 or 3 catches a game. He's been consistent. He's been solid.
Yeah, I think it's been a good year for Noah Gray and a step in the right direction. I'm not sure he's ever going to be your number one, but at the tight end position. But he seems to have a good amount of value and a solid player.
And I would even say real quick before we move on that I think it'd be kind of nice to see in his last year maybe him be the 3rd tight end and then find somebody else that it could even be more of an upgrade as that 2nd tight end. And then you have kind of, maybe your 13 personnel is back to being more effective, because I don't think Gray's just earned the right to be like the tight end 2 without any competition. I mean, he's been solid, but he hasn't been amazing.
Totally understood. Let's talk a little bit maybe on the negative side. JC Proctor asks, with all the draft capital at linebacker, why are teams finding success targeting them, especially against tight ends? You saw some of that, especially in the early going against the Bengals. I think they were specifically targeting Nick Bolton in coverage, which we've always been aware that that's been a little bit of a weakness of his. But They seem to make some adjustments and get a little bit better in the second half. But maybe you can speak a little bit to the tight end versus linebacker matchups, and is there still a weakness in that tight end in the linebacker room?
Well, it's just like any NFL offense now. You want to attack the linebacker position because it's kind of the position teams don't value as much, right, in the draft capital. The funny thing is the Chiefs do value it a lot, right? And plus they've signed Drew Tranquill, which is just an overall investment. They have a lot in the linebacker position. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting teams in base personnel, getting the Chiefs in base personnel, running a lot of play action. Bolton is not as good, going backward as he is moving forward. And that's just kind of a weakness in his game. And that's, something that teams can exploit. I think Willie can be a little erratic in his kind of coverage. I think there's times where he's kind of, moving a little too, he's not just sound kind of dropping into a space. He's kind of, a little too reactionary, kind of trying to jump things, and it leaves space open. So, and then Leo Chenal, obviously, in those base packages, and they have all three linebackers on the field. Again, I think it's just a smart strategy about offenses to attack and when the Chiefs are in that way, because any other Chiefs personnel they're in, they're a lot harder to pass against. So I think that's why you see teams attack it that way.
Yeah, you're not going to have absolute perfection on all three levels of the defense. We talked earlier, the Chiefs pass rush is a strength, the Chiefs secondary is a strength, and the linebackers are better than they have been in recent years. So I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over the fact that teams can get some yardage there at times. They've got ways to close that up. They've got Drew Tranquill who they can rotate in, if Bolton's getting picked on in the passing game. They've got options there with two very, very athletic linebackers and just an overall solid player. So I think there's an opportunity there for them to mix things up. And so, yeah, I'm definitely not worried about it. This may be a defensive team now, and Joe at Bro Leave Me Alone on Twitter says, if the Chiefs can score 25 like they did last night or the other night in the playoffs, when does their season actually end? So how far can they go with this model of being a ball control, game management offense, simple offense with a good defense?
Man, it's interesting, right? Because, this defense just continues to impress. I think in the playoffs when, everything is, more on their P's and Q's, like the offense, I'm saying it'll kind of help the defense not give up like the Raiders game, 2 touchdowns. So I don't know, man. I want to say like, they get, they'd win a couple playoff games at least. But I do think if they get to that AFC Championship and it's in Baltimore, I do think you need to score more than that to beat Baltimore this year. That offense is good. Lamar, I think, is just going to be hard for this defense to, that's the one thing that, mobile quarterbacks have kind of still given this defense, trouble at times. So yeah, I'd say the AFC Championship, if that's kind of, if we're talking that we can guarantee 25 points in the wild card and division round. I'll have to see the matchups, but I do think they could beat Buffalo that way. The Browns, obviously. I think the Dolphins, could it be in Arrowhead, right? I do think you can trust the Chiefs defense to maybe hold them down to at least 24 points. What do you think, Stags?
Yeah, I mean, if they play the way they did against the Bengals, I think they can probably get through the first round or two of the playoffs. I think that's a reasonable assumption. They've got to be clean. They can't turn the ball over a lot. They turned it over once against the Bengals. That's if they turn it over more than once, 25 points isn't going to do it. And that's just kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I think the defense though. I think Spags playoff mode held Joe Burrow to 10 points last year, or not 10 points, excuse me. Was it 17 points or 20 points? It was 23-20 game in the AFC Championship last year? Maybe it was a low scoring game for a lot of that. But yeah, I think Spags defense, playoff mode is going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, they say the defense wins championships. They at least give you a shot. And if you've got a great defense, you got Mahomes, you've got a shot. So we'll see how that plays out. Jake Wilson at Jake for now. This is my favorite question of the week, I think. Suppose you had the ability to magically protect the Chiefs throughout the postseason run. Magically protect them from only one of the following. Which would you pick? Would you magically protect them from throwing interceptions, from fumbling the ball, from injuries, from 3-and-outs, from uncontested drops, from missed kicks, or from a penalty on the final drive? These are all good because these are all things that have happened this season. This is clearly not a coincidence. These are things that have been a problem all year? To me, the answer is very, very easy. I'm going to let you go first just to see if you come up with the same thing.
Man, that is tough. But, I think it is interception because there are a lot of plays where the drop turns into an interception. So you can't say that drop's going to turn into a pick if there's no interceptions at all. So the drop can't turn into a bigger play. I'm going to say interception. But
I was 100% going interception because a slightly different angle is if you can tell Patrick Mahomes it is impossible for you to throw an interception this postseason. I like that. He can sling it all over the field and never throw an interception. That's going to be a lot of fun because you take that fear away, you take that risk away, and now he doesn't have to play as conservative. That could be a really fun few games there with no risk of interception. That would be awesome.
In past years, I feel like injury would be the easy answer, but this team is not just like, hey, if this team stays healthy, it's in the Super Bowl. I think some years you could say that, but I think this team definitely needs a little bit of magic like that.
Obviously, we've talked all year about drops. That would be a nice one to avoid all the way through the playoff run. Hey, if you never had a 3-and-out on the playoffs, you're scoring a lot of points most likely. That would be another one you could think about. But yeah, give me Mahomes with no chance of an interception all day long. That'd be a lot of fun. Looking forward a little bit to the offseason, Tim Niker, K-N-I-K-E-R, Niker, maybe, yeah, asked, what's your priority ranking of the offseason for the free agents below? Is it sign Snead, sign Chris Jones, or another defensive tackle to replace him? Sign a top free agent wide receiver, sign Willie Gay Jr. or Drew Tranquill, sign Mike Dana, sign a backup running back, or sign others. And this sort of ties in a little bit to Chiefs all day question. If you could only keep one, who would you keep, L'Jarius Sneed or Chris Jones? So how do you prioritize these guys in the offseason?
To me, it's become clear. And I think it is helped by the players' stages in their careers, right? Chris Jones is at a way different stage in his career than L'Jarius Sneed is. It almost feels crazy that L'Jarius Sneed is just now coming off of his rookie contract because he feels like he's been playing for so long now. But, to me, it's L'Jarius Sneed, and I think you do need to get him signed because I feel like you have the secondary, this young secondary of rookie contracts where, you pair the expensive guy with the rookie deals, and that kind of, gives you a strong secondary without maybe paying as much as some teams would, maybe having to sign two big guys or, having to sign a big safety. Because Justin Reed's contract is even not very expensive in this last year of his deal coming up, even though you could cut him and kind of, start over with the safety position as well. All that to say, I think it's Sneed. And that's not even really a slight to Chris Jones, but I do think it's going to be one or the other, right? Sags, like there can't be both of them signed to big deals.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get that lucky to see both of those guys signed. I think based on the way negotiations have gone with Chris Jones, it's just going to be difficult to get him done. And you can't bank your entire offseason again on signing Chris Jones to a long-term deal. You'd love to see it. I wouldn't complain even if they overpaid him, if they were able to lock him in and you knew that you had him as a centerpiece of your defense going forward, great. But this secondary has got something special brewing, and they've got some other options at pass rush with Karlaftis coming on, with Omenihu, who's got another year in town, right? There's a couple of players that they can develop. You can sign Mike Dana much cheaper, bring him back probably than obviously what you'd have to pay Chris Jones. There's some different things you can do there. They're going to need to address defensive tackle with or without Chris Jones. It just becomes very, very difficult if they sign Chris Jones first or if they have to wait and save money to sign Chris Jones to make any other moves. So he kind of holds your whole offseason program hostage if you go into the offseason trying to sign Chris Jones first.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that's actually a good point because, as good as Chris Jones is as a pass rusher, you do have these other pass rushing options coming on. Omenihu has just been a force. So he could even play that Chris Jones role on third downs as that inside pass rusher, that long guy that's lanky. So I think there's a lot of signs pointing to Chris Jones maybe, not coming back to Kansas City on a big deal, but and he's not the guy that I think he's going to go get his money. So I guess that's to say, it does feel like it's Chris is going to get signed somewhere else. But as far as the other lists on this, on Tim's, on his priority list here, he says sign top free agent receiver. That would be, to me, something I would like to see them do. And it does feel like they're going to do it. Like we've seen Brett Veach overcorrect positions when they need to get overcorrected, even if maybe it is overcorrecting it. But that means maybe paying a guy a lot of money in the free agent market. And there are some good receivers, maybe not as strong of a class as we maybe initially thought, but still some guys you can go after and get. A guy like Mike Evans to me is starting to feel like more and more of a good answer, just because he still looks like he's playing well at 30 years old. If he does want to make that commit, although, at his age, maybe the deal is going to be, he's still going to ask for a lot of money. He is like a Hall of Fame receiver. What I'll have to say is I think number 3 would still be, or I guess number 2, if I'm not talking about signing Chris Jones, number 2 would be signing a top free agent receiver.
Addressing that wide receiver room is certainly going to be a top priority, one way or the other, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a rookie, whether it's both. I mean, you'd feel pretty good about this room if they brought in a Mike Evans with Rashee Rice, and then they drafted somebody relatively early. It doesn't even matter if, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, or others develop behind them. You've got a room you can lean on. I think that Willie Gay or Drew Tranquill is going to be an interesting offseason thing as well, just because, one or the other, it's going to be hard to bring both of those guys back, although you'd love to see it. Running back, he has on here sign a backup running back. I wouldn't necessarily go to the free agent market for a running back. I'd certainly look at the draft again for that. I would love to see them just be really intentional about getting an explosive running back, a big play down the field type running back. Think a Jahmyr Gibbs type player. Obviously, that's going to take an earlier draft pick than what they'll probably spend on it. But you'd love to see just kind of that big play element from the running back room. You can find running backs that can get you a couple yards here and there. There's not very many running backs that have that game-breaking speed or that game-breaking ability. I think that would be an element that this offense could really use.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, man, he looks like Jamal Charles. Like I've never remembered a running back reminding me of Jamal Charles. And, I don't want to I'm not trying to disrespect, GOAT Chiefs running back, but I mean, my God, the way he just runs, the way he can get out. I mean, it really is Jamal Charles-esque. And yeah, I would like to see the Chiefs give Pacheco a better compliment, so they can still use Pacheco's strengths and still, use him to his best strengths and skills. But again, I mean, this whole skill position group needs a revamping, and that does not exclude the running backs.
If you had a Thunder and Lightning and Pacheco was your Thunder, then you got something going.
Instead of taking 100% of the running back handoffs like this last week, like it's not going to last forever.
All right, Tim Niker also asked, the Chiefs need the next 3 AFC West titles to tie the Patriots for most consecutive division titles in history. Given the issues on other teams, you have to believe the Chiefs are favored to do so. What are the biggest obstacles in the next 3 years for the Chiefs to go 11 straight in the AFC West?
I think it's the Broncos, honestly. I'm really fascinated to see what they do this offseason. But Sean Payton is absolutely going to have that team competing, winning, fighting for the playoffs. They were this year. I mean, even with the quarterback they apparently didn't want starting for the second half of the season, they won games and put themselves in position until that Patriots loss. So I would definitely say Denver. I know Justin Herbert's in LA and they'll get a new coach and maybe that's going to revitalize that offense, but they have a lot of roster construction to do there. And so it might take a while still for them until Herbert's fully utilized, which sounds crazy because he's already been kind of wasted throughout his first few years. But I'm definitely on Denver. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are always a mess one way or the other. I think they may have finally found a coach, though, that can do something over there. So maybe that's a team to be reckoned with. I think they still have a lot of things to figure out, but they've put together some pretty interesting wins this year, as has Denver. But really the only obstacles to me are, the more internal, more so than the external options. I'll keep saying it until something changes. This team's able to win any game where they play well. If the Chiefs can execute, it doesn't really matter what the other 3 teams in the AFC West do. They're not going to pass them up. We're starting to run low on time here, so let's jump to Ed Holinsky's question, and then we can preview the Chargers regular season finale game coming up. Ed Helinski says, what individual and team New Year's resolution should the Chiefs vow to do for 2024? This is the New Year's question. We're recording this the day after New Year, so the 2nd of January 2024. I'll start here. Everybody's New Year's resolution is to lose weight, right? Like that's what every individual person throws out that resolution. That's what they want to do. Maybe the Chiefs could resolve to lose some dead weight and stop playing MVS so much, and just kind of put him on the bench at this point going forward. Reallocate those snaps and those targets to somebody else.
Yeah, I like that. No, I like that one. No, I was just gonna say, something to the effect of, maybe stay clean of the, anything impairing the old, the old brain cells. Anything going against that. Let's just stay. Let's just have a clean January. So what do they call it? Sober January. I think people do that, right? Let's just
dry January. Yeah, have a clear head. Yeah.
Dry Jan, let's just, Kelsey, Mahomes, everybody else, whatever, let's have a clear head. I know everyone needs their vices, but this team, these receivers, everybody needs to be on the same page with Mahomes. So I think anything will do. So let's have a dry January. Shout out.
What about give me one individual player resolution? I'll start with Jawan Taylor. Speaking of clean January. Jawan Taylor starting this year out fresh, forget all of the stuff where he's been the target and the focus of the refs for 2023. Let's have Jawan Taylor go penalty-free in 2024. Oh,
I love that. I mean, that's good. No, I think Mahomes, honestly, he does need to, play him a little more disciplined. So, I think if Mahomes can vow to, go through his, be disciplined more through his reads, stay in the pocket, through the entire play. If the reads really aren't there, checking down in rhythm, not trying to make a big play, when it's necessarily not there. I think Mahomes could do some, could be a little more disciplined, hone in on his play to play craft. So I'll give you that.
Fair enough. Well, we have one final regular season game to preview. What do you like about this matchup with the San Diego, Los Angeles, whatever Chargers coming in for the final game of the season?
Well, we are heading out to LA for it. It'll be in SoFi Stadium. Mm-hmm. And, so a little LA trip, a little nice little vacay for the team right before the playoffs start. I really do think it'd be nice if the Chiefs just, and I know Travis Kelce is within a catch of it. So I get maybe him doing it but for the most part, these veteran starters, let them rest, get everyone, that bye week that would have been nice to have this year, right? If they did truly, get the 1 seed. They don't have it. They usually do. Use it as that bye week before the playoffs. I would like them to do that. But these young players, I think there's a lot of rookies, second-year guys that could still stand to have, another game to still get in rhythm, get confidence still. So I'm not saying everybody, but I don't need to see Mahomes. So I would like that to kind of be the case. I don't think it will be. I do think they do value that kind of like I'm saying, the Kelce thing. I could see them coming out one drive, getting Kelce the yards and calling the starters quits. But I would be fine, Stags, with not really seeing any significant players take the field at all and just getting ready. So I really, this game's a nothing. I mean, it's just about looking at young players and seeing if anyone kind of stands out. So I'm excited for that part of it, I guess.
Yeah, the Chargers have not had a good season. They've really struggled.
No, I can't imagine they'll give much of a fight. Like, it's not like one of those teams where they'll come out and like, oh, we want to spoil, or like we want to finish the season strong. Like, everyone's quit over there. Like, I got to imagine.
I mean, they're 5-11. They've lost their last 4 games and 7 of their last 8. Their lone victory over the last 8 games was 6-0 over New England.
That's hilarious.
It's been a rough go, including that 63-21 loss at the Raiders. If that doesn't make you quit, I don't know what's going to. They played Buffalo and Denver tight the last 2 weeks, but this Easton Stick-led offense, shouldn't scare anybody. They've got a defense that's wildly inconsistent. So I don't know what to expect from them from a matchup perspective. I do think the Chiefs have to see it as a get right, as a tune-up, maybe a little preview of the future with some of the young players, and just try to make one more run at the playoffs. Definitely want to see Kelsey rested and healthy. Want to see Mahomes escape healthy, whether he plays at all or not. Either way, you keep those two guys healthy. You get everybody else maybe some reps and figure some stuff out. I think they could still win this game. And I would like to see them do that. I mean, you hate to see them limp into the playoffs, even resting guys on a loss. And somehow 11 wins sounds a lot better than 10, given this 17-game schedule. So I'd sure like to see them find a way to win this game, but I'd love to see them do it with backups, a la Chase Daniel from years ago.
Yeah, no, right. I do think 10-7, 7 losses would be the most Andy Reid's ever had in a season with the Chiefs, tied with 2014, the only year he didn't make the playoffs since when he was a head coach here. So yeah, no, I think there's something there, and the Chiefs always take pride in winning these games, even if they don't have the primary guys in there. And I mean, honestly, I talked about, like, this team is made full of young first, second, third year guys. So like when I mentioned earlier that really the veterans I'd like to see the rest, it's really not that many of them. So you should see a good chunk of the guys still playing. I think that, I think staying in a rhythm, like I mentioned with Rice earlier, is important. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs will still try to win. But guys like Mahomes, Kelsey, even Pacheco, I would say would be the main one maybe in the offensive side. Let's get them some rest and go on this run. I mean, I'm excited to see if they can pull this off, Stags. I'm excited to see if they can do a defensive led kind of, not the same kind of win as they've had in the past, Stags. I mean, we're fans now, right? It's all about just seeing what's about to happen. So
at least get to the AFC Championship game, and then everything else is gravy. I hope the rest of you had a great New Year. The Chiefs clearly have some resolutions in their pocket. I hope you all do as well, that you enjoyed the break like the Chiefs hopefully will this week. Definitely join us again next week as we hopefully are celebrating another Chiefs victory and a playoff run ready to begin. Again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and stick with us. Thank you so much for your questions and for listening as part of your day. Happy New Year to everybody. We'll talk to you next week.